So, as old as time has ever been, we've always had this essence of having fish in an aquarium and having fish that we catch when we go out fishing with our friends or our parents, and eating fish in one of the best restaurants that was ever there, and going to beaches and enjoying fish there. But the bottom line being that fish aren't really just supposed to be something that you can devour for your entertainment and taste. It turns out that fish really have their own capabilities in the scenario in which they could literally eat you alive. And they have eaten people alive before. We're talking about fish that are really, really dangerous. We're not talking about regular fish, we're talking about fish that have a temper, the fish that can hold their own in a fight. More importantly, we are talking about fish that love the taste of flesh. And I know that the first thing that comes to your mind when we talk about topics like this are piranhas. And of course, that makes sense. Piranhas have been infamous for being this fish that eats people, for being this fish that attacks people, attacks humans all the damn time. But the truth couldn't be further from the fiction that movies show us. So, piranhas, let's get a couple of facts out of the way first. Piranhas are freshwater fish. Piranhas are usually found in South America and in rivers. Also, they're found in floodplains and lakes and reservoirs. Piranhas usually are a pack hunter, so you'll never find one piranha going off on its own and trying to get a kill. But most often than not, you'll notice that piranhas don't really kill. You see, piranhas are like hyenas of the water. They would much rather go for a dead carcass that is either on the riverbank or a dead carcass that is inside the water, like some other animal hunted and a part of the meat that was left in the water. Piranhas would go more often than not prey on that. The average size of a piranha was somewhere around 51 to 60 centimeters. So you're looking at some fish that isn't really the biggest in the world, but yet is something that holds its own when it comes to a number of them attacking a single source. That's why you see that if you throw a carcass in the water with piranhas infested, you will more likely than not see a bunch of them attack that same chunk of meat, and hence why they devour that meat so quick. It's not one piranha going back and eating it that fast, it's just the fact that there are so many of them that when they all herd in and surround whatever they're eating, it's just not going to take that much longer to make sure that it's all done and dusted with, it's all over. Now, there are many other subspecies, and let's just say that piranhas are nowhere near what is the worst thing in the oceans. But before we move on from piranhas, the major question that a lot of people have is the fact that what eats a piranha? Like we've seen of movies in which piranhas are the alpha predators, but the reality of the things couldn't be further from it. You see, piranhas are often eaten by crocodiles, are often eaten by river dolphins. So it's not that they are safe by any speck of the imagination. There are creatures out there that are much more dominant than a piranha could ever be. And they make sure that the piranhas know that. So when we claim that the piranha is the alpha of the fresh water, we are wrong on so many occasions. Yet, what we don't understand is the fact that piranhas are very, very unlikely to attack human beings. Even if you're bleeding in water that is infested with piranhas, you can rest assured be very much sure about the fact that they're not going to be attacking you, even though you're bleeding all over the place. You see, piranhas are very scared, they are very frightful creatures. And if you are panicking in the water, if you are a threat to them, then they will stay away from you because they're tiny, as we've known. And the fact that they travel in a herd doesn't mean anything for when they're attacking or trying to attack something that's still living. If it's dead, then yeah, they're all herding together and eat it clean, right off the bones. But if it's still alive, it's still a threat. And they're so tiny that even a struggling fish could seriously hurt one of these tiny little things. Even though they've got razor sharp teeth, it makes no difference because their size compromises everything that they've got going for them. Now, another thing that was done with a lot of research was the fact that scientists put a lot of blood into the open water to see if creatures that were supposed carnivores in the water could actually smell blood and would actually be attracted to it. And they did this with shark infested water as well as with piranha infested waters. And what we came to the conclusion was that it is a rumor, nevertheless. You see, Hollywood teaches us so much about fish, and all of that is false because A single drop of blood in the ocean, as Jaws taught us, would attract a shark from miles away. But in reality, even if you drop like a bucket of blood in the water, a shark wouldn't care less. As long as you're not showing a struggling piece of meat, or a piece of meat being dragged behind a boat, a shark will not go for blood. It'll go for something that is moving, like a seal. That's why you see great whites attacking people who are in wetsuits, who are surfing, because they look like seals from underneath. And when they attack you from underneath, they don't know that they're attacking humans. More often than not, they get one bite and then realize what they attacked, and they let you go, because they don't want to eat a human being. You don't give anything that they need in terms of fat, in terms of meat. Human beings are more skinnier than the rest of the animal kingdom that is available to them to devour and enjoy a healthy meal out of. So, on the list of the top 10 fishes that threaten man, or that threaten anything, as a matter of fact, well, let's go down the list. So, we've got the kangaroo, we've got the great white, we've got the moray eel, we've got the tigerfish, and then we've got the piranha. So, these are the top 5. And the kangaroo is one of the most horrible fishes that you'd ever come across, considering the fact that it loves the whole essence of trying to swim up a urethra and lodge itself into either the tract or go and swim into another fish's gills and lodge itself in there. This is a parasitic fish that is straight out of a horror movie. And if a movie was ever made on the kangaroo, it would make so much sense to call it the vampire fish. But a vampire fish isn't really the only thing that is out there that is scary. Well, I don't know if you guys have heard of the vampire squid, but it is a very, very real thing. And why is it a very, very real thing? Well, it's a very real thing because it exists in reality. It is called a vampire squid according to scientific terminology. So it's not far-fetched. It's not something that people have made out. Or it's not something that Hollywood has made up. It's something that holds very serious ground. Now, vampire squid is usually found in tropical areas. You could say extreme deep sea conditions. And another beautiful thing about the vampire squid, if anything is beautiful about something called a vampire squid at all, is the fact that it has bioluminescence. Now, on land, the only bioluminescent animal or insect, as a matter of fact, that we see are fireflies, and maybe a few more. But in the ocean, especially in the deep seas, it is something that is very, very prevalent. So, bioluminescence usually helps a lot of fish attract smaller fish that they can then prey upon. Also, bioluminescence helps a lot of fish guide their way. You see, there's something known as a hogfish. And a hogfish is downright disgusting because a hogfish looks nothing like a fish would ever look like. A hogfish is usually known for one thing and one thing only, and that is that it would find a dead carcass of a fish, no matter what fish it is, and it would burrow itself inside that dead carcass. As a matter of fact, the only reason a hogfish was ever found was the fact that they captured they like pulled up a crab trap and they found a dead carcass inside that crab trap. Upon opening up the dead carcass, they found a hogfish inside of it, which disgusted everybody on board because it looks like an elongated tapeworm, but it's actually a fish, which is really disgusting if you look at the larger scale of things. Now, hogfish are usually present from around 5,000 to 5,500 feet, so that's really remarkable in terms of how deep these things can actually survive, considering how they survive, but beggars can't be choosers at those depths, I guess. We move on to cusk eels. Now, cusk eels are not that scary, but nevertheless are something that we should be mentioning now that we're talking about horrible, horrible fish. So, a cusk eel is faceless. Yeah. It's faceless, which is weird. Well, scientists have said that it looks like the tail end of two fishes. That's how faceless it is. Also, a cusk eel has been found as deep as 13,000 feet under the ocean, which is remarkable to say the least. And it was found by an Australian group of scientists that were venturing into the deep seas to do a lot of research. And they came across this so-called faceless eel. Now, the last time one was caught was in 1873, and one hasn't been seen since. Now, they've got deep sea diving equipment, that robots essentially with cameras, and they send these down to do a lot of research, gather a lot of samples, and they've come across a few since then. But the last time one was caught, nevertheless, was till 1873. That's a long, long time ago. It's weird that these things still exist, but we've never come across one in all our fishing ventures. You haven't seen a fishing boat come across such horrible creatures because, well, to be very frank, they don't fish that deep. Another thing that is very, very freaky is something known as a goblin shark. Now, a goblin shark has a trademark long snout that is flat. But that's not the part that gets scary. The part that gets scary is the fact that it's got 50 teeth. Yeah, 50 teeth. 50 teeth for a shark that lives so deep in the ocean that you would not even comprehend what it needs those 50 teeth for. But the point of the matter is that anything that might move down there, especially squids, this shark is going to rip in half with its 50 teeth and then devour without a question of a doubt, without fathoming anything. It doesn't care if you are down there. As a matter of fact, deep sea divers over the years have faced horrible, horrible injuries if this managed to survive at all. And most of them don't even know what attacked them because it's pitch black down there. The only thing that they know is that they got a bunch of bite marks in certain cases. In other cases, they got a huge chunk bitten out of them. In other cases, people who were observing whales noticed that when whales would deep dive into these deep regions, they would resurface with huge scars, huge gashes, only to leave it up to the imagination and the contemplation of the normal man to wonder what is down there that is hunting whales for food. We all are very much aware of the fact that whales are the largest creatures known to mankind. So what is down there that believes that eating a whale is such a good idea? But hey, it's a fact and it exists. So we are lucky that these creatures aren't living in shallower water or living out in the open ocean, for a matter of fact. They're living in the deepest sections of the ocean under hundreds of bars of pressure where normal humans would rarely ever go. So we, as a habitat, are lucky to be ground dwelling creatures and not ocean living creatures, is what I'd say. Because considering the fact that whatever is down there is so much more dangerous than whatever is up here, I don't think it would be such a good idea to do any of that. We move on to the anglerfish. Now, this fish is known as the world's most disgusting fish to look at, and it's proclaimed in so many movies, especially Finding Nemo, especially a few other movies in which they show this dangling little light in front of a fish, and then you get closer and you realize that it's a horrible looking fish with huge teeth. Yeah, that's the anglerfish. What we don't know, that the anglerfish usually does not have the bioluminescence thing in front of it. Only the female anglerfish has that. And only the female anglerfish uses that as a kind of a lure to bring in more fish or bring in more prey that it can then quickly and efficiently devour. What we understand from that is the fact that the bottom of the Atlantic and Antarctic oceans are nowhere near what any one of us needs to ever be in. Because if you are there and if you do find yourself face to face with an anglerfish, then God help you. That's all I can say. Or maybe a spear gun can help you too. Moving on to the final most horrible fish is something known as a barrel eye. So this isn't as scary as the others, and that's why I would like to end this on a much more lighter note. A barrel eye, the last time it was found was 1959, and where they confirmed it again was 2009. The one great thing about this fish is that its eyes can rotate in its head, so it can look completely 90 degrees up and 90 degrees down. That gives it the unique ability to look at prey that it can prey upon up, as well as keep an eye for anything that might be lurking beneath it in the 3D realm of the ocean. You see, we as human beings are so used to the fact that we have a 2D spectrum. We do experience 3D in terms of depth and height, but we don't experience 3D in terms of what might be able to creep up on us when we're just swimming free or walking free. Imagine if something could just pop out of the ground from underneath you and attack you. Yeah, more often than not, you can have that in deserts and forests, but they aren't really underneath you now, are they? A creature like a tiger can't be hiding underneath you and then attack you. Whereas in the ocean, creatures that are bigger than tigers, more often than not, do exactly that. They hide underneath you in the depths and they look up at you. And then they make their way up. That's exactly how sharks attack, and that's exactly how these big creatures attack as well. So what do we learn from wondering about this broad spectrum of fishes that are more dangerous than we thought would ever be possible? Well, on a personal occasion, I'm never going deep sea diving again. And on another personal note, I would say that stay as far away as possible from these deep, dangerous zones of the ocean. We see a lot of the oceans are still unexplored, a lot of the oceans are still, well, incomprehensible in terms of what might be there and what might not. The only thing that we can do as human beings is understand that there are certain places where we don't belong, and there are certain places where other creatures have claimed as their own for millennia. And for us to try and breach that place right now just because we believe that we are the alpha creatures on this planet, we might be in for a very, very bad reality check. A reality check that we might not necessarily like. With that being said, stay away from the oceans. I'm only kidding, but yeah, stay away from the oceans. See you guys in the next one. Take care.